The city is probably the oldest, most enduring invention of our civilization. The words are interchangeable: civilization, civil, civic, city. Cities evolve over time. They respond to crises, and historically, they emerge from crises stronger than ever before. So what are the future trends for cities, and what are the lessons of history?
Greetings and hello. I'm Deborah Berke. I'm an architect in New York at the firm Deborah Berke Partners, and I am the Dean of the Yale School of Architecture. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to be talking about adaptive reuse, what some people call retrofit, and what is, to my mind, actually the rethinking, reworking, and redefining of old buildings for new futures. These transformations are made more profound, and their impact is amplified by a nuanced dialogue between past and present. And I would add that there are also reverent and irreverent versions of this transformation, not so much an either or, but more a sliding scale of the nature of the design response. We do a lot of this type of work in my office, and it is as varied as the reworking of a Jewish community center in New Haven, designed by Louis Kahn in 1952, into a facility for Yale's School of Art, or transforming an abandoned asylum for the insane, designed by H.H. Richardson and built in the 1870s, into a hotel and conference center. These are buildings by great architects, and the transformation of their uses in both cases is dramatic. The very act of adaptation, critical reflection of the building's past and current postures, developing consensus on what should remain and how the existing fabric is expressed, and reimagining the building for contemporary use and values, offers a platform for constructive dialogue. Historic preservation, while generally well-meaning, often puts constraints on what architects can do. It's important to value old buildings for what they are and not turn them into objects frozen in time. Reinvention avoids memorialization and museumification, which are closed-off interpretations. Adapting these buildings opens the door to new possibilities and configurations, creating more open-ended and culturally accessible spaces. Transforming a building can be an opportunity to tell a more complex history of a place rather than just one story. Preserving an official story of a building often serves narrow interests and can be exclusionary. We are interested in creating a meaningful dialogue between the past, the present, and the future experience of a place. There's also an urgent need right now to understand adaptive reuse in relationship to the climate crisis. And treating buildings as disposable is short-sighted and destructive. There are so many needs, whether it's housing or rethinking workspaces or increasing access to public resources or infrastructure, access in buildings in our parks, or even, and perhaps most importantly, increasing access to art. Now, we have been working on a number of cultural projects recently that transform old school buildings and factories into places of art making, performance, and community. It's an exciting and urgent moment we are in to be thinking about transforming our buildings and our resources for new futures. So there are three specific projects I want to share with you in this talk. And I'm going to start with the conversion of an old New York City public school in the East Village in Manhattan, which was built in the late 19th century. This is what it looked like when it was in use as a school and when the elevated train still ran on First Avenue. The building was later abandoned by the Board of Education and reoccupied by arts groups, sort of guerrilla-style way, in the early 1970s. And its elaborate cornice and some of its decoration had been removed long before. It is now a community arts center, including theaters for Mabu Minds, the experimental theater group Performance Space. There's a health organization, Alliance for Positive Change, which provides services for the AIDS and HIV positive community members in the neighborhood, located on the ground floor. There's dance practice space and space for painters and the exhibition of paintings. It is clad in perforated stainless steel, meant to shimmer in the daylight with varying levels of transparency. The painting studios, the dance rehearsal space, the small street-level Vest Pocket Park at the new accessible entrance, and a public roof terrace behind our reconceived cornice are all aspects of reimagining this school. But what was interesting is that all the arts organizations said to us, their architect, don't make it too nice. They were saying, really, don't erase history. It's what makes this building special. And they were referring both to their own histories and to the buildings. And we listened, and you can see, among many things, old columns in small theater spaces, stair railings, stained glass windows, old public school, large windows that let in enormous amounts of light. We cleaned and repainted the old and contrasted it with the new. You can see that here in the extension of the stair railing that goes up to the new top floor. Here's a view of the experimental theater. A new canopy extends past the historic masonry facade and connects to a veiled and glowing addition that holds new modes of movement up through the building, i.e. an elevator. There's a new entrance sign that welcomes and draws the public into the 122 Community Arts Center. The addition makes wayfinding clear and straightforward, gives the users autonomy in navigating the floors held by the various arts organizations, and in turn, users and visitors alike feel permission to explore, to participate, to exchange ideas, and to engage with the art and the artists. The next project is a hotel built from what was an automotive assembly facility in Oklahoma City. Building on the mission of engaging the public with contemporary art and supporting the revitalization of American downtowns, our design is for the 21C Museum Hotel. It transforms the historic Ford Motor Company manufacturing building that was originally designed in 1916 by Albert Kahn, a master of modern industrial architecture in the United States. The building has a presence at the edge of downtown, and its reanimation and reactivation has helped shape the revival of the area. Within it, we cut through the densely reinforced concrete floor plate to insert new glass block light wells. These were precise moves to connect floors and bring in natural light, bright daylight into the core of this vast building. Our desire here, however, was to approach the enormous structure with a light hand. About 50% of our practice involves adaptive reuse. We find it incredibly satisfying to breathe new life into old buildings, particularly as part of a larger revitalization strategy. That was the intention with the first 21C Museum Hotel and all those that followed. The hotels are meant to strengthen the downtowns of mid-sized cities in which they're located and bring vibrant contemporary culture to cities that may not have contemporary art museums or music in their cores. The last project I'm going to talk about is in New Haven, Connecticut. It is called Next Haven and is the home of an artist residency program founded by Titus Kaffar. Titus received his MFA from Yale. He's been featured and reviewed numerous times in the New York Times. He's won a MacArthur Genius Award, and he is represented by Gagosian Gallery worldwide. He and I never met at Yale, but we were glad we met through the collectors behind 21C. We discovered how our lives overlapped through clients, art collections, institutions, and certain very strong beliefs, including one that is a commitment to community. He found 2 abandoned small factories in the Dixwell neighborhood of New Haven, very modest 1-story buildings and not far from the local high school. Titus's vision for Next Haven is to provide affordable workspace for artists, mentoring local youth, and contributing to the revitalization of the Dixwell neighborhood. Our design celebrates the foundations of the old buildings. Timber beams, brick walls, concrete floors were all cleaned and left exposed, and many industrial elements retained. A big central gathering and event space was reopened with high ceilings and with the original sawtooth skylights repaired and reglazed. The new addition's facade is composed of glass and staggered gray brick, creating a clear distinction between old and new. Illuminated at night, the new addition adds as a beacon for the center and signals renewed investment in the neighborhood. The idea is that the facility is open, welcoming to all. There are 22 studios, a large meeting hall and event space, numerous small workshops for graphic artists and digital artists, a big shop, workshop, a jazz theater, which is a nod to the noted jazz music coming out of this neighborhood before World War II. There's also, of course, the environmental impact. In its life cycle, a building is responsible for two types of carbon emissions, operational and embodied. Operational carbon relates to building energy use, resulting from both fossil fuel consumption on site, as well as the emissions associated with grid-purchased electricity. Embodied carbon is emitted during the manufacturing, production, and delivery of materials used in construction. In comparison to new construction, repurposing an existing building significantly reduces embodied carbon emissions. Our approach considers a building's carbon emissions through its entire life, analyzing both operational and embodied carbon. We must assign proper value to the resources that have gone into making our existing buildings, the human effort, the craftsmanship, the materials, and their carbon footprint. The EPA has estimated in the United States, construction generated more than 600 million tons of debris in 2018. And of that, more than 90% came from demolition, with only 10% attributable to new construction processes. When considered through the lens of embodied carbon and sustainable materials management, the argument for adaptive reuse is straightforward. And when coupled with the social resonance these projects can have, that argument becomes ever more compelling. Altered in form, posture, and purpose, the transformed building is newly positioned to better respond to the needs and ideals of the people it serves. The existing structure forms an expressive framework within which unexpected, idiosyncratic, and nuanced spaces can emerge. Reinvention is rich in possibility and stakes an optimistic claim on our shared future. Thank you.